Hi, I'm Ed Rochette, and I have the privilege today of interviewing Mary Brooks, Director of the United States Mint under President Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. Mary, hello. This is a privilege to interview you, and I'd like to go back now to 1969, a new United States Mint in Philadelphia. Mary, tell us a little bit about the new mint.
Well, I had to wait, till Eva had her opening ceremony after I was appointed for 5 or 6 months. And when we got to Philadelphia, of course, it was all very, very new to me. And when we discovered that we had that great big penny machine down in the basement that I guess it was General Motors concocted it, and it wouldn't work. And we had to get rid of it. I'm afraid Eva was a little irritated with me. I don't know, but we had to get rid of it. And then we had, we had problems with some of the machinery. And it took, I'd say 3 or 4 years before we got we had a big machine off at the side that we were trying to make our own strip. And that was very difficult in-house. But it all worked out. But with a new mint and new ideas and so forth, a lot of it had to be adjusted.
I know you have a great interest in historical preservation. Would you tell us a little bit about your office at the Treasury Department in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, that was fun. I discovered that furniture down in the basement of the old Philadelphia Mint, in among barrels of oil and coils of metal. And when I saw the furniture, I've always loved interior decorating, and I saw that dollar sign on the back of the chairs and the crest of the United States, and I knew that was terribly valuable. And then because the records had been kept so very nicely out in the old mint in San Francisco, I even got the letters from the superintendent that had that furniture made, and I found a picture of his office. So when I got all that furniture restored, I put it in my office, and we took pictures of it, and then it's out in the old mint in San Francisco now. But I asked the press in to see it, and most officials in Washington never let the press see their offices, because if they spend a lot of money, why, they're criticized by the public. And so they were very curious, and the history of those pieces, it cost me, I think it was $5,000 to get the old furniture restored, and it was valued, there was no value put on it. It was incredibly valuable when we got it finished, and I was terribly proud of it. And then Nixon was president, and John Ehrlichman came across the street. I had Pat over, and the cabinet wives, too, to see it. And then Ehrlichman came across the street, and he said, "Mary, you've started something with us. We kind of feel that we're destroying things when we do over some of these federal buildings. And we're going to go very carefully now that we don't tear down and do away with things that have tremendous historical importance." And then when I found the old mosaics in the old mint in Philadelphia and had them moved to the new mint, that was another thing I'm very proud of.
Mary, I believe you were the one that initiated the Mint store at the Treasury Department. You want to tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yes, we found there was some space underneath the steps there on the side toward the White House, and they let us have it, and we developed a store down there where we could sell our products to the public. And of course now the Mint is selling their things all over the world.
We know about your interest in young collectors. I believe that you initiated a couple of programs that were of interest to young collectors.
Well, our history in our mint medals has been fascinating, because we started making those back in the days of Washington. And it occurred to me that if we could get the young people to study the history of their presidents and not buy those big heavy medals that we made, I could reduce them to the mini medal size. And then I had cases made so that you could stack them up and kids could buy the whole set of presidents they were interested in. And that was very successful. And I guess they're still making them, I don't know.
Mary, when you came to Washington and became director of the United States Mint, what were some of your early impressions about coin collectors?
Well, you know, as a director, when you come to the convention, you're always put under the microscope. And they want to know, why'd you do this, and why'd you do that for, and why don't you do this, and why don't you do that? And if you notice when the mint director comes to the convention, she isn't out in the public where they can grab at her all the time. And I quickly learned that. So I would come and appear when you needed me, and I would sign certain things at our booth and that sort of thing. But you're not, you feel like you're the fly under the microscope. Your wings are being pulled off. It wasn't until I went to work for Paramount that I began to appreciate the real coin collectors, numismatists. And I've made some tremendous friends in the hobby now that I wouldn't have known otherwise. Because most mint directors drop right out of the picture. Now, Eva didn't, but then she was on the board of the ANA. But most of the other mint directors don't come around and fraternize. But I love to come to the conventions now.
Mary, during your administration, the nation celebrated its bicentennial of independence, and you were responsible for some of the coins that came out during that time. Would you tell us about them, please?
And that was the biggest coinage change you'd had in history at that point. And I had a wild idea that I should have a people's coinage change. So I tried to have a competition, and it was very lengthy. It took too long. I nearly killed myself going around the country talking about it. And we had prizes for the amateurs that wanted to send in their models, and they submitted them in clay, and we had a big time. Oh my word, that was a great time. But because Congress decided that I had to strike 40 million of those, they never became collector's items. And that made me furious, but I had nothing to do with it. I was ordered by the Senate committee to strike that many.
Mary, you mentioned a minute ago that after you left the office of Director of the United States Mint, you remained active in the hobby. You went to work for Paramount International. Tell us a little bit about the Paramount days.
Well, I'm still with them. I still work with them. They've changed they're now an international company, and my boss, Max Humbert, lives in the Bahamas. But in the early days, they sent me to Europe, carte blanche. And I knew Arthur Burns, the head of the Federal Reserve. So I got a letter from him, so that the countries I went to were Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Hungary. That was it, 4 countries. And I had a letter to the central bankers in each country. And you have no idea, when you go in to see the central banker of Spain, for instance, he takes you down into the vaults below the Bank of Spain that are stories down under the ground. And then when they got me down there, they told me that in case of disturbance or anything, they'd flood it. And you had to come up through these, it was like a labyrinth down there. But you saw the most wonderful display of old coins, probably in the world, the Spanish bank has. Then I remember Hungary. It just opened the doors. I've done a lot of work in Hungary since, and it's opened the doors for the Hungarian Mint to Paramount. They've had a lot of coins made in Hungary. They do wonderful work in gold and silver. And I've been back to Hungary 3 different times since. But I made some great friends. But oh, I was scared to death when I went to Hungary. Behind the Iron Curtain, you know. And one funny story, I was sitting in that airport in Vienna waiting to fly into Budapest, you see planes going all over the Middle East, all over the world there. And I watched that board and I got more nervous, and I thought, my God, poor little Mary from Idaho's going behind the Iron Curtain. I went to the ladies' room, and as I came back, I saw a Marlboro sign up here, and that was taken out in Peekaboo, Idaho, where my daughter lives. Marlboro takes the cowboys out there in the hills and takes those pictures and uses them in their ads. And I thought, well, the world's a small place, and I relaxed.
In 1980, you visited Eastern Europe, Poland. It was the height of the Solidarity movement.
Absolutely.
Want to tell us a little bit about Poland and Eastern Europe?
That was quite startling, because we were not sure they were going to let us in. They had had some trouble, and they had a lot of trouble after we were there. And of course, our guides we knew were Gestapos, but and they kept telling us these awful Polish jokes. And we had more food than we knew what to do with, and those poor people in Poland weren't eating very well. We used to snitch things at breakfast and carry them out and give them to the guides. But that was a tremendous, you were on that trip
Right.
also.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tremendous experience.
Mary Brooks, wife of Senator Curly Brooks. Would you tell us a little bit about the early days and your background in politics?
My son is in the state senate. My father was a United States senator in Washington, and that's how I met Curly. They sat by each other. And I used to work in Dad's office in Washington. Then I had to go back home. And when I came back again, Curly was still there. And he said he'd met all the fat widows and the skinny widows and the rich widows that ever came to town. But he called me one day. And he said, I used to sit by your father, and he used to talk about you and your late husband. And he said, I think it's time we met. So he came after me, and we went out to dinner. And we used to do our courting in the cloakroom behind the Senate. And when I watch the Senate on C-SPAN these days, I think of so many things. It's just fascinating to me.
Mary, it's 1988 now. And if you were in Washington and you were still director of the United States Mint, what are some of the things that you would do if you had the option to do them?
Well, I would be aghast, probably. I don't want to comment on that. Things have changed so completely. In the old days, I had a hard time getting any money for advertising. And now they just appropriate all kinds of money for ads of people in New York and companies that don't know much about numismatics. And they're selling a great many coins, doing very well. But because I was a politician and I had been in the Idaho Senate myself, when I'd go up to those hearings, you know, I wouldn't be kind of buffaloed by those chairmen. And I could speak to them sort of like one of the boys. And I got along with the Annunzio beautifully. We hit it off beautifully. In fact, I went charging up and testified on some of the coinage, and Occidental had, what's his name, the old man from Russia. He was in
Armand Hammer.
Armand Hammer. He told Max Humbert afterwards, he said, that Brooks woman was devastating. Max said, you must have made an impression. But anyway, that took a lot of nerve. But I enjoyed doing that.
Mary, we have your impressions on U.S. Mint. What's your impressions today about the hobby?
Well, I'm delighted to see that old coins are coming back. That's wonderful.
Do you collect yourself?
No. I couldn't very well, because as a director, it's a conflict of interest. And I wasn't a collector, so until I got into after my director's days, well, then I began to really appreciate the hobby. I had always appreciated the history and the romance of coins and the art of coins, but I'm not I can't sit and look at little tiny things all the time. That would drive me crazy. I'm too impatient.
There's talk today of changing the existing designs of coins, perhaps going back to allegorical representations of Miss Liberty on our coins, or keeping the same presidents but changing their portraits. What would you do if you were there in Washington and they said, Mary, we want to change the designs? What would you say?
Well, when I decided I wanted to change the coins for the bicentennial, they all just had fits because they said we can't handle it. You have to make too many. Of course, we're making the 1 cent piece, and maybe they'll eliminate that one of these days. But they said it's impossible mechanically for the mints to have an outpouring of new coinage and flood the country and have enough. So they stopped me. I wanted to do all of them. No way would my men go for that at all. They gave me the dollar, the half dollar, and the quarter. Well, I don't know what you do right now. They'll have a time doing it because of the production problem it will confront the mint with.
Mary, thank you for being my guest on Living History. Mary Burks, Director of the United States Mint.